Hola, mi gente. It's been a while, I know. Every single time that I have thought about posting a video or coming back to either the podcast or just publishing here on this platform, inevitably something always comes up. I'm just getting off of a almost 40-day straight reporting run out of Los Angeles. Obviously, you guys know this is where I live. And this is also where the military, the National Guard, has been deployed and has been the center of the anti-ICE protests. The ICE raids are continuing, so by no means is the situation over, but a lot of it has kind of died down. Half of the troops were sent home, and I just recently heard that most, if not all, of the Marines are also being sent back. Things have gotten a lot quieter, a lot easier to manage. My schedule is not go, go, go on a daily basis anymore. And so I figured now would be a perfect time to come back and get back to the political commentary that you guys know I love to provide for you. Today, I am offering an episode that I actually recorded several days ago. I am going to have a co-host, not every episode, but I plan on having a co-host most of the time. And that is going to just help me massively and making sure that I can consistently post moving forward. I do have some plans for the future of not just my YouTube channel, but also my Substack channel. I don't want to say what those plans are because, again, things happen all the time that kind of mess up what I initially plan on doing. And so I don't want to jinx myself, but I have massively missed coming onto this platform and giving you longer form commentary, longer form content outside of just what you see on my social media. But thank you to all of you who have followed me from my Instagram or my threads and have come over to my Substack or my YouTube channel. It means a lot to me that you're here. And I hope that with more consistency, I'm able to upkeep these channels up as well. But this is what I like to do. This is my preference, is to, talk about, what's going on in the news, talk about what's going on with politics, and to really learn and educate ourselves, because I am also educating myself on how to decolonize politics and our political sphere. There's so much more to talk about, but I want to go ahead and just dive into today's episode because it is a good one. We are being joined by my friend Paige Fernandez, who has been in the political sphere for a really, really long time and has some really, really powerful insights. So let's go ahead and dive into today's episode. I'm here with my good friend Paige. Paige, introduce yourself to the audience, please.
Hello, everyone. I'm Paige. I live in Philadelphia. I am an abolitionist organizer. I've worked at a few different national nonprofits, but these views are my own, and that's important to state. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here with you today.
Yes, I'm so excited. So, y'all, we actually recorded an episode before this, maybe a week or two ago, but literally life in LA was so impossible to schedule around because obviously we have a military occupation, we've got the Marines, we've got the National Guards, we've got LAPD shooting at everybody. So it was really difficult to get the episode up and out, and we had some recording issues. So we're officially recording this now and we'll get it up really soon. But we wanted to introduce Paige because Paige is going to be joining me quite frequently on this second season of the podcast, which I'm really excited about. So we'll definitely do a much longer intro in the future for you. But today's episode, we just wanted to get into all the things. So we have two very specific political topics that we want to bring to you guys that are very, very timely. So obviously, I just talked a little bit about the situation in LA and what's happening here. We're going to go into that a little bit deeper in a second. But the first topic that we want to discuss is neoliberal politics that is coming out of the House of Representatives. What the fuck is going on with AOC? That's what everyone is talking about online. All of yesterday, that's all I could hear is, what the fuck, AOC? Literally. So let's get into this topic. Paige, can you introduce us to what the fuck is going on?
Let's get into it, because what the hell? We're going to show a brief video that kind of explains, like, summarizes what's going on. But basically, AOC voted really poorly in on a piece of legislation, actually an amendment to a piece of legislation yesterday, and she's rightfully getting a lot of heat for that. She put out a statement like a few hours ago this morning, addressing it and kind of gaslighting all of us, I would say. So should we pull up this TikTok video that kind of gets into it?
Yes.
Cool, let's do it.
Silence after getting absolutely destroyed online for voting to keep sending weapons to Israel. For context, AOC voted against an amendment that would cut $500 million from Israel's missile defense programs. And so after her supporters were angry at her for doing so, AOC took to X and put out this statement. You can pause to read the entire thing. But essentially, her explanation was that she voted against the amendment because it would cut defensive Iron Dome capabilities for Israel, and that the amendment does not do anything to cut offensive weapons to Israel. However, people were not buying that bogus explanation, and her comment section let her have it. This person, for example, said, and I quote, "There is no such thing as defensive military aid when you give Israel the military infrastructure that ensures that it can do its G-side and launch its wars against Lebanon, Yemen, Iran, Syria with full impunity. You are directly and intentionally funding and arming the G-side." And remember that it was Marjorie Taylor Greene, the MAGA conservative, introduced this amendment to cut funding to Israel. So she now has way more morals and cares about human beings more than AOC, the queen of the left.
Big yikes.
Yeah.
Big yikes. So I think the basic gist is that Marjorie Greene Taylor, in a total plot twist in US politics, introduced an amendment that would basically cut $500 million in US aid to Israel that goes to Israel's Iron Dome protections. And their Iron Dome is basically their defensive mechanisms to fight back against rockets or missiles or things that are aimed at Israel, from Palestine, from Lebanon, from Iran, from other countries, right?
Right. So they're allowed to bomb other countries, but they're not allowed to get bombed back. And this Iron Dome is funded by the US 100%. So continue.
Exactly. No, that's it. It's ridiculous. And then her response to it is just this, like, oh, well, we don't want anybody on the other side being harmed either.
Listen, a mess. So we're going to pull up her response, because literally I'm sure her DMs were also flooded, but her comments were flooded on both Instagram and I'm sure TikTok and whatever else. So yeah, very nefarious. And also, like, there was a lot of back and forth online too of like, did she actually vote no, or did she just vote present? Because she's done that in the past, right? In the past, she's just voted present or abstained her vote so that she didn't get the smoke. This time around, though, we did our due diligence to make sure that we got the facts. We actually went and found the actual votes, and she did vote no. So let's pull up her tweet so that we can talk about what her response was. So this is the tweet that AOC decided to put out. She says, Marjorie Taylor Greene's amendment does nothing to cut off offensive aid to Israel nor end the flow of U.S. munitions being used in Gaza. Of course, I voted against it. What it does do is cut off defensive Iron Dome capacities while allowing the actual bombs killing Palestinians to continue. I have long stated that I do not believe that adding to the death count of innocent victims to this war is constructive to its end. That is a simple and clear difference of opinion that has long been established. I remain focused on cutting the flow of U.S. munitions that are being used to perpetuate the genocide in Gaza. Okay, girl. Sure.
He is trying to gaslight us.
Okay, baby girl. Like, okay, my first initial thoughts on this is that her wording is incredibly sneaky. I think we talked a little bit about this offline, of the sneakiness of saying like, oh, the reason I voted no, specifically, not a abstention, not a like present vote. I voted specifically no to this because of the fact that it might lower the defenses of the Iron Dome. So that's the very first line of that, like, I guess, second portion or third portion. Then the sneaky part comes in of her intentionally mentioning Palestinians and how they are going to be affected by this. They're going to be negatively affected by this, right? Because it has nothing to do with the Iron Dome. It has everything to do with the billions at this point of dollars, US taxpayer dollars, that have gone towards funding an apartheid state, a genocidal state that is never going to end unless these politicians that we are electing to go into office end it. That's what this was meant to do. Is it's not actually ending the funding, it's lowering the funding. So once you start the defunding process, then you can work towards completely abolishing all of the money going towards this state, right? If they want to continue war crimes, let them fund it themselves, right? Why do we have to be the ones to fund it, right? And so I think that's the wildest part of this statement, and that's what people are pushing back against the most, is that this Iron Dome only protects Israelis. It does not extend to the Palestinians. It does not extend to the West Bank even. And so it's just so egregious to me that she would try to like sneak in, oh, but I also care about the Palestinians. But you don't. But you don't. This is neoliberal politics.
It is. And she's trying to make people seem like who voted yes on the bill are like in support of innocent victims being killed. And it's nonsense. I think, you know, some of the comments on Twitter, I just have to read out loud because they're so good. People were like, anyone against the genocide should be in favor of cutting off the, and I quote, defensive, because like so many quotes around defensive capability of the Iron Dome. And somebody linked to an article from Jewish Currents from 2023, actually, by Dylan Saba, where there's a quote in this article, and I think it just like really stood out to me that I'd love to read. That's, you know, by almost entirely negating the ability of militant groups in Gaza to respond to Israel's incursions, the purportedly defensive Iron Dome allows Israel to strike without fear of repercussion. And because the cost is so low when measured in Israeli casualties, Israeli can wage perpetual war without suffering domestic political consequences.
Right.
So for me, the AOC statement is just like lacking any critical thinking. I'm like, you know this. She knows this. And she's also in the past said that she doesn't think we should be funding anybody else's army or military.
But
but I guess in certain circumstances it's acceptable.
Exactly. And that is the part that pisses off so many people. And the thing that really gets me here is whenever people call out the neoliberal hypocrisies that continue to happen out of the quote unquote left, which no longer feels like the left, by the way, it's starting to feel very centrist on a daily basis. But whenever people criticize this, they always try to push back and say, well, no politician is going to be perfect. Like, that doesn't make her neoliberal. It just means that she has complex and nuanced decisions to make. And it's like, no, if you literally stand on a stage and you say free Palestine, it means your every single vote that you decide to vote on has to reflect a free Palestine. A free Palestine does not include the U.S. continuing to fund millions of dollars. How many millions was this one?
500 million. 500 million.
500 million. And that's that's just defunding. That's not even ending the funding. That's $500 million
It's like
less.
a fraction of the funding that we provide for them.
It's like, so you don't want a free Palestine. So the free Palestine is just a slogan to you. Free Palestine just gets you in the door to be both a leftist and a neoliberal. It's again, it's so centrist, and a lot of people are like, well, what's wrong with centrism? This is what's wrong, because then your votes don't reflect what the people actually want, nor does it reflect your morals. Because if you really did care about Palestinians, you wouldn't care about this Iron Dome, because it doesn't protect them.
Yep.
Full stop. It does not protect them. It only protects the occupying state, the apartheid state, the genocidal state. Like, I don't know how many ways to say it.
Exactly. And she's making sure that Palestinians can't fight back. They can't fight back. Israel has a monopoly on violence as a result, because they have this Iron Dome and all these defense mechanisms that we are paying for in place.
Here's the other thing that I literally just thought about. Obviously, we know that Israel has been attacking not just Palestinians, but they've also been attacking Syria forever. They've been attacking Jordan. I believe they bombed Jordan at some point. Now they're attacking Iran. There was a lot of videos when Iran decided to bomb back. There was a lot of videos about this Iron Dome failing and working, right? Like, we did see a lot of rockets get shot down, but it wasn't necessarily working all the way. And I'm wondering why AOC feels so strongly about this Iron Dome being fully funded so that Israelis can protect themselves, while saying absolutely nothing about Iran, right? Because didn't she say that she was against attacking Iran?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And then, but now she's being like, no, but we need to fund Israel's right to defend itself. But why? Because Israel is the one doing the attacking.
Exactly.
So who
they are
do
the
you
ones
actually
doing
care
the
about?
attacking. I'm like, when people are like, when states and countries and militant groups are responding, they're acting out of defense, because Israel is on the offense. They're the ones perpetuating this genocide. And even like her reference to this being like a war frustrated me, because I'm like, they have a monopoly on violence. This is not like an equal-sided war. No, that is just not the case. Like, this is a genocide. And it is crazy to me. I'm like, history books are just going to look, I have to hope that history books will look back on this and be like, this is fucking appalling. Sorry, excuse my language, but like,
no, you're good.
It's appalling that she's like, the genociders need to be protected at all costs.
Please protect them at all costs. No, it's crazy bananas, the hypocrisy. So, oh my God. So that's what AOC decided to do. I think this is going to continue. Here's how I think this is going to play out, because I'm literally looking at the press pass right now. I went to the Fight the Oligarchy tour that her and Bernie did. And I literally felt like it was a propaganda tour for her bid for presidency. That's what I felt. I felt like it was a grooming thing. I felt like Bernie knows that he's obviously not going to live forever. He's so freaking old at this point.
So old.
Like, who knows? And listen, I was a Bernie stan. I voted for Bernie in primaries. I wanted Bernie to be president at one point. And his absolute failure on this topic of freeing Palestine has demoralized me to no end. Like, I have been so disheartened by it. And then the Fight the Oligarchy tour really just felt like another bid for prioritizing the popularity of certain politicians, even if you don't agree with a lot of the things that they're choosing to say and do. And so for me, it just felt very much like, they're making moves here for AOC. They're definitely making moves here. And one thing that I really noticed in that tour was almost everyone was there for Bernie. They weren't really there for AOC. And it was a mix. It was a mix of people. It was older people, boomers, I would say. There was millennials. There was Gen Zers. There were people who weren't even like old enough to vote at any point in time soon. So the crowd was incredibly diverse. There were also people who were wearing the kufiya. They brought Palestinian flags. And still, the messaging was, oh, but they still have a right to defend themselves. Oh, but they still... And it's just like, guys, read the freaking room. Like, so for me, this vote was very intentional and very specific, because I think she knows that if she wants the Democrats to back her in any sort of bidding, she has to vote like the centrist Democrats, the ones who are going to push for that bid. And we've seen this because we've seen how Zoran has been treated by the Democrats, not even just by MAGA crazies, by Democrats themselves, establishment neoliberal Democrats who do not want progressive leftists. And so it's very, very frustrating to me to just see the strategy here.
Yeah.
And the fact that this was a woman who we backed because she was grassroots, she was relatable, she was working class, she understood the politics of the left. And increasingly so, she has steered more and more and more towards the center. And it's just so disappointing.
Yeah. It's like the more power she wants to have, like she wants to be closer to power. And in order to do that, she's moving to the center and to the right, to be clear, like more and more. It's so disappointing. But we would be remiss if we didn't talk about who voted yes on this amendment, because it is absolutely bonkers.
It's an interesting crowd.
It's like so bizarre. The House like overwhelmingly rejected the amendment from Green. There were 6 people who were in favor of it. So 6 people who were like, yes, let's cut off $500 million going to Israel. And those were Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Macy, who honestly I don't know, but he's a Republican from Kentucky.
Oh, definitely not a Republican we would agree with.
No. Al Green, Democrat from Texas. Summer Lee, whoop whoop, shout out to Pennsylvania, love her. Ilhan Omar, Minnesota, and Rashida Tlaib. What a group.
It's wild.
Did I ever think I'd see a day where I saw those people voting on the same page? No.
And for drastically different reasons, right? Like,
absolutely.
This, even though this bill was a push that, is it MGT? Yeah. MGT decided to go with, or MTG. Like, her reasons for putting this out are very different from like an Ilhan Omar. You know what I'm saying? Like, Rashida Tlaib and MTG are like so opposite spectrums. Like,
so completely opposite.
Very different agendas, right? And so, but on this thing, somehow right politics and left politics decided to converge on this one thing. And what's really, really, really fucking interesting as well is that I'm seeing so many clips of like right-wing conservative MAGA coming out and being like, why the fuck are Republicans not backing this bill? Why aren't they going with Marjorie on this? Why do we keep sending money to Israel? That is so fucking interesting, because typically it is the right that really pushes for funding for Israel. And now the consensus is really against it, right? Because not only is the messaging of MAGA is putting America first, and that means you got to fund America, right? Like, you got to stop funding foreign governments. But it's also a strong distaste for what's been happening with our tax dollars against Palestinians, which is a connection that I never thought I would see conservatives or Republicans making, right? Unfortunately, because they are so war hungry most of the time.
Yep.
We went through the Bush administration, both of them, right? We remember how war hungry these people are. And so to see them be like, no, we got to stop funding this. Like, what are people doing? Why are we bombing Iran? Why are we trying to topple that regime? Why are we going over there? Do you even know, like, remember the clips that were going around of what's that podcaster? Like the really far right one. He used to be on Fox.
Oh my God. I know who you're talking about.
What is
Oh my God,
name?
I know who you're talking about. The comments on this podcast are going to be dragging us. I know who you're talking
know.
about.
They're going to be like, what is his name? Tucker.
Yes.
Tucker Carlson. The way that he has been on these people's necks, specifically Ted Cruz, on his freaking neck about why are you trying to topple Iran if you don't know anything about them? Why are you trying to, like, you know, continue funding Israel if these people aren't doing anything for America? And I'm literally sitting on my phone looking at these clips like, do I fucking agree with Tucker Carlson?
No, it's when people go like so far right that they come back around left, you know? It's like, you're like, oh, you're coming around the bend. Like,
yes. And it's like, oh, it's what? Like literally my mind is blown.
Yeah.
But like also, yes.
Yes.
And like, please continue to go around on so many other topics.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, no, it's really truly atrocious, and it's wild and it's crazy that MTG is voting on anything related to like something that Ilhan and Rashida would vote on. Like, voting on humanity is not something I thought MTG would ever do, but like here we are.
Yeah. Yeah. And like maybe her reasons are much more tied to like the deficit and like the government shutdown. But I'm like, whatever the reasons, cut off the funding.
Cut off the funding. It's really that simple. And then that brings us to our last topic, which is around ICE, immigration, the police state, the military occupation. So that what you just said reminds me of I think it was a tweet that was going around on some lefty parts of Instagram where Democrats specifically are wanting to make bills and laws that will reform ICE, essentially, that will force them to take off the masks as they're kidnapping people and force them to make sure that they're wearing their badges and they're visible as they're kidnapping people, rather than what they should be doing, which is abolishing ICE altogether. And there was this tweet that was going around of like, yeah, this Democrat is like, yeah, you know, ICE agents should never be wearing masks and they should always show their badges. And then the tweet above it was a lefty saying, ICE shouldn't even exist. That's the difference between neoliberal politics and progressive politics.
Yes, exactly.
They do have a different strategy, a different agenda, and a different moral standing, in my opinion. So whenever people say, you know, lefty, whatever, centrist, whatever, like I will throw around those terms because that's what people know. But for me, it's much more important to be clear about the fact that a true progressive would not want to reform ICE. A true progressive would want to abolish ICE altogether.
They dismantle these institutions. These
exactly.
systems. Yeah.
Exactly. And so some of you who follow me on Instagram will know that I have been reporting on the ground for the last like 40 plus days on what's been going on in Los Angeles specifically. So the anti-ICE protests kicked off in LA and then they kind of spread all across the country. I've seen some really amazing ones coming out of New York, Philadelphia, Ohio had one recently, Atlanta. And this is going to continue, right? Like the Trump regime really wants to enact their white supremacist agenda by kicking out as many brown and black folks as they possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
ICE is not deporting or kidnapping white immigrants. They just aren't. You're not going to see any images of that because that's not who they're trying to kick out. They're specifically enacting a white supremacist agenda. Nobody is deporting Melania Trump. That's not happening, right? Even though she could be denaturalized any day now.
Yep.
And so we just have to be like really, really clear about why these protests are happening in the first place. It's not just because these kidnappings are literal kidnappings, right? It's not just because of that. It's because this is incredibly racialized. And it's also a war against the working class of America.
Yep.
The lower class of America, the working class, lower middle class, because as we know, California is so incredibly expensive that even if you make on paper a really good chunk of money, you're still considered lower to lower middle class. And so this is definitely a war not just on race or ethnicity, but this is a war on class. And so I think it's really important that if you haven't been able to really wrap your head around why this is such an important topic, even if you say to yourself, well, I'm not an immigrant, none of my family members are immigrants, I'm not going to get deported anytime soon. That may no longer be the case because guess what? They are now trying to denaturalize, which is an incredibly difficult process, but they are trying to get away with it and they possibly could enact it. They're trying to denaturalize people, meaning that even if you are considered a citizen because you were born in the United States, they are now trying to take that away from people. Again, it's incredibly complicated. I didn't think that they'd be able to do it, but they are really, really working hard through the judicial system, which is a whole other conversation, to make it happen. And so let's talk a little bit about the way that this is going down. So a lot of people prior to Trump's election have been talking about cop cities popping up everywhere, the militarization of our police, and why defunding the police was such a big, big, big major topic after 2020. And then Democrats decided, no, we don't want to defund the police. No, this isn't the direction we want to go in. Kamala Harris, specifically at the DNC, said, we want to make the military the most deadliest military on the planet.
Unbelievable.
And people lost their shit. So how did we get here, Paige? Like, how do we even begin to dismantle this topic of how it was possible for Trump to send the military and the National Guard to the city of Los Angeles to basically terrorize the community?
Yeah. I mean, I'm like, where do we even start on this topic? But one thing I want to say, like, just to have it out there, is like the Democrats, like, as you were saying, difference between neoliberal, liberal, and progressive, and Democrats who have touted themselves as liberal really like paved the way for this to happen. Like, they laid the groundwork, and Trump's just like taking advantage of the institutions that Democrats invested in. I'm looking at you, Barack Obama. I'm looking at you, Joe Biden. I'm looking at you, Bill Clinton. Like, there were Democratic presidents who set the precedent for mass deportations, mass detentions, and really paved the way for this. And I think, there's so much of this that I think is tied to just like policing in this country, because we've normalized policing and the carceral system so much that people are almost like desensitized when you're like, oh, well, now ICE is going to be the biggest law enforcement agency in this country, right? Their budget sorry, now I'm getting sidetracked, but with the reconciliation bill, the big ugly bill that was passed, right? Their budget is expanding so much. I think it is like their budget for deportations is going up like 246%.
Yep.
Okay. And their budget for like detentions and enforcement is tripling. It's going up threefold. It is making it like the largest law enforcement agency in this country. And that is horrifying.
Mm-hmm.
It's horrifying, but it's paving the way for what we're seeing in LA. Like they are giving ICE more money, more funding, more free reign, more power, more autonomy to do whatever the fuck they want, which is terrorize communities.
Right.
Terrorize community members and incarcerate and detain and put people in the most inhumane conditions you can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And I really appreciate your point. Like, maybe people, people are like, I'm not an immigrant. I don't have immigrant family members. Very important to talk about like how they're trying to denaturalize people. And really important that Trump said he had like a speech to a bunch of cops like a few months ago where he was like, we're deporting immigrants now, but we're about to focus on people who are, and I quote, homegrown. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
He was talking about deporting US citizens to El Salvador, South Sudan. It is horrifying, but we live in a country that loves the police, that is all about backing the blue. And ICE is a police agency. They are an arm of the police state.
Yep.
And so we've normalized it so much to this point that, of course, they have this power and this free reign. And then you have Democrats who are like, I love the police, so I'm not going to fucking stand up to ICE. Or I'm not going to tell my local and state police departments to not cooperate with ICE.
Mm-hmm.
And they're feeding into this. And it's horrifying. And obviously, we have like Trump and the Republicans using all these like racist dog whistles, talking about criminals, gang members, nonsense.
Right.
And it's just fucking appalling. And one final fucking thing that I just need to say that's really been upsetting me that I've been seeing is when people are like, people who are being detained aren't even criminals. And I just hate the framework of criminals broadly. Like, we are not like the worst mistakes that we make, right?
Right.
And so many people have done so many illegal things. And people are just lucky. Like, I am privileged and lucky that I have not been caught, doing drugs, whatever, and like being incarcerated. It is just like, you haven't been targeted, your communities haven't been targeted, maybe. But most people in this country have done something illegal that would land you in jail if the cops saw you do it and you were like a Black person. Okay.
Right. Exactly. And there's so many things that the US criminalizes on purpose so that they can put more people in jail, right?
Exactly.
I think there's literally so much research on this, but like so many people talk about 13th, right? And like how the pipeline of, oh, you broke the law, therefore you automatically go to jail. Therefore, you automatically are now a slave to the system. Therefore, you automatically, like, there's just so many ways and steps to become a quote unquote criminal in this country that like you literally step outside and you're a criminal according to US law sometimes. And so all of this has been strategic. And that goes back to my main point of, and I think you also said this very well, is that none of this would have happened had Democrats not also been complicit in laying the foundation for all of what's happening today to happen. And I think, sometimes that can make people feel really frustrated because they're like, well, but we got to vote for Democrats because blah, 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 that's all we have. And it's like, okay. Let's pretend for a second. Let's pretend for a second that is true. Okay. Let's just pretend for a second that is your only truth, that you can only vote for Democrats 100% of the time because that is your only option. Even if that was true, wouldn't you still want to push Democrats, whoever is in office, to not allow these things to happen rather than just sitting back and being like, yay, a Democrat won. we're good. We can breathe now. We can go to brunch. Wasn't that like the big thing online is, oh, if Kamala Harris were president right now, we'd all be at brunch.
Oh my God. It
No,
upset me
ma'am.
so much. It upset me so much.
No, ma'am.
And I was like, and that's part of the problem, is that you would be at brunch and that's not acceptable.
Exactly. And not only that, but no, you would, like, many of us would not be at brunch.
Exactly.
Many of us would still be incredibly negatively affected by a lot of her policies. So while she may not have been enacting Gestapo on the communities, she would have still been funding ICE to the tune of millions and millions of dollars. She would have still been deporting people. And none of these problems would go away. They would just be a little less in your face, right? The stabs in your back would just be a little bit nicer, a little bit friendlier. They would come from a friendlier face. And that's still wrong. That's still bad. And so I think that, you know, as I continue being out in the streets, because I'm literally going out tomorrow to go film a video. As I'm still going out to the federal building and I'm seeing the National Guard, mind you, they reduced the National Guard by half, but the National Guard is still out here. The Marines are still out here en masse. As I like continue reporting on this, every single day, I'm just like, wow, the Democrats are really, really bad at fixing problems.
Yeah.
Because here in California, we have a Democratic mayor, we have a Democratic governor, and all they are doing is suing the administration. Sure, that's one thing that you can do, sure. But they're suing the administration and then they're providing lip service about how, oh yeah, the National Guard needs to go home. But then behind the scenes, they're allowing LAPD to brutally attack the press, brutally attack the protesters who are exercising their First Amendment rights. They continue allowing the police to use facial recognition software against protesters to identify who the protesters are. I literally have video and photos of the National Guard and the LAPD taking pictures of the crowd. They are the LAPD has consistently used less lethal, quote unquote, weapons against protesters and against the press, causing all different types of issues. I'm making a video right now on a man who was shot by a less lethal rubber bullet in his face, and his jaw is wired shut for 7 weeks. Because he had so much damage to that area of his face, he can't talk.
Oh my
he
God.
Literally cannot talk. He's on a liquid diet.
Oh
That's what a less lethal weapon will do to you. It won't kill you, but it'll ruin your life. So these are all the things that Mayor Bass specifically is allowing to happen. She has praised consistently the LAPD's efforts at quelling whatever she thinks they're quelling, people peacefully protesting. She is praising their efforts. And the only reason that she is allowing this brutality to happen is because she just doesn't want the National Guard to be the ones brutalizing people. She would prefer that the LAPD do it so that the National Guard can go home. So that she can show, look, we're doing everything we possibly can. We got this. We got this. We can brutalize our own people. Please send the National Guard home. It's disgusting. And so it's been 40 days, well over 40 days, and they're still here. The Marines are still here. The National Guard is still here. Whatever they have tried to do to end this occupation has not worked and is not working. And so for me, I think there was a podcaster that said, Democrats consistently tell the voters that when Republicans are like in office and they have, basically the House and the Senate or whatever, is Democrats will always say, there's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do. So at a certain point, you have to believe Democrats can't do anything, right?
Yeah.
Whether they have the House and the Senate or whether they don't, they can't do anything. And they're not going to. And so for me, it's been really, really frustrating reporting on this. And it's been so disheartening for many, many reasons. But I think politically, what I'm hoping is that this is going to continue to have repercussions, but repercussions to the point where the voters will decide, finally, no more vote blue no matter who. Let's get some actual progressive who have balls
Yes.
to go against an administration and actually do what they need to do. No more lip service about, well, we got to play nice and we got to do blah, blah. No, the Biden era is over.
It's done.
The Biden era of we got to play nice with the other side is over. It's done. There is no more playing nice. You have to start enacting progressive policies, and you have to start going on the offensive and breaking this foundation that Democrats laid themselves, and make sure that you actually protect the people who voted you into office. And I feel like hopefully we're getting to that point. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think people are so disillusioned with the Democratic Party, as we should be, because they have failed our communities so much, and not just failed, like caused active harm, and supported police forces and other institutions that are harmful, while also like defunding important like social services and making conscious and deliberate decisions to not invest in the things that actually keep communities safe and people safe. And so I'm also hoping that people are moving to like fuck the blue, like vote blue no matter who nonsense, because that's not going to save us. And again, like I think your point about what would be happening if Kamala Harris was in office is so important, because these like deportations, this detention, like this like ICE would still be functioning, just not probably as publicly. It wouldn't be as in our faces as it is now, and it still would be unacceptable.
Right.
It would still be unacceptable. And that's what I hope people are moving towards, where it's like, it doesn't matter who it's under, who's doing it, or how they frame it. Like going back to AOC's tweet, like it doesn't matter how they frame it, how they try to twist it, how they try to gaslight us. It's unacceptable.
Right.
And the Democrats aren't going to save us. You know, I'm not sure there's any like specific political party that will save us, but we have to be leaning into like actual progressive candidates who like put themselves on the line by taking progressive stances. You know, the candidates who are publicly like free Palestine, defund the police, even though it might be politically harmful to them in the long term or whatever. Those who are like, I don't care if I'm not in office another term, I'm going to do exactly what needs to happen right now to protect our communities and stand up, and I'm not going to be a fucking coward.
Absolutely. And I think that is the key message, is that any establishment Democrat has become establishment because of the ways in which they have strategically tried to remain in office. It has not been about voting for the interests of the people. It has been voting and strategizing for the self-interest of that specific politician to make sure that they continue to remain in office. Exactly. And if we have learned anything at all from the last several fucking decades, it's establishment Democrats are not our friends. We need to continue picking truly progressive people. And I want to close it off on this, because I actually remember this happening when Hillary Clinton was, I think it was a primary that she was running in. I don't remember the year. I don't remember the year, but I specifically remember watching the television and being like, and I wonder if it was Bernie who said it to her. But anyway, she was on the stage and she was debating in a primary about, you know, I think the question was, are you actually a progressive, or are you establishment? Like, are you actually voting? Like, when you say you're progressive, are you actually voting progressively, or are you just an establishment neoliberal? Essentially was the question. And she was like, no, I'm a progressive, but I'm a progressive who gets things done. And my jaw literally dropped to the floor. I said, oh, she's serious. So anybody, like, we have to start really paying attention to the politicians who know all the right things to say and will co-opt progressiveness in order to get what they want.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton was an establishment politician. She knew exactly what she was saying when she said, "No, I am a progressive, but a progressive who gets things done." What she actually meant, for the people in the back, because inevitably they're there. For the people in the back, what she actually meant was, I will always vote for the interest that keeps me in this party and keeps me funded, rather than truly voting for progressive things that aren't always popular, with the centrists specifically, that aren't always going to be backed by the DNC, which is an establishment itself, that isn't always going to keep my base happy, specifically with things like defunding the police, defunding the military, right? Defunding Israel. That's what she meant. That's what she meant. And we have to continuously see and spot the Hillary Clintons in our current party and make sure that we vote these assholes out. You just gotta do it.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Paige, thank you so much for joining me today. I can't wait for our next episode. Yeah, let's make sure that we're continuing to talk about progressive politics, and we'll continue talking about all the things that matter in terms of political pendejadas that are going on.
Love it. Love it. And fuck ICE, you know, as a final note.
Amen. Ashe. And all the things. All right, guys, we'll see you next time. Hey, everyone. It's your girl. I hate doing intros. We'll cut that out. Intros are the bane of my existence.
It's hard.